The following is a Live the Dream Media production.
Hello and welcome to the Faith Family Schools podcast with your host, Christopher DeSimone.
All right, my friends, welcome back to another episode of Faith, Family, and Schools, America's Road Back. Remember, check out faithfamilyschools.com. If you have any questions or you'd like, Chris thrown off the air, go to info@faithfamilyschools.com and email us. And you can find us, of course, on YouTube, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. And we are happy to have our first long-distance podcast Zoomer. And it's his name is Thierry Cagianut. He's calling from Zurich, Switzerland. We've been talking about international soccer and other things while we're ready to go. And he is a filmmaker, producer of the movie coming out later this week in the U.S., Mother Teresa and Me. And he's best known for Virgil Bliss, Henry Fool, and The Lost in Love, current president of the Zaria Foundation, and a law partner, don't hold that against them, with the Baldi and Karach. Good morning.
Well done. Thanks for having me.
Like I'm telling you, it's all those international soccer names have been helping me today. Yeah. So let's talk about before we get to the movie. Mother Teresa and Me is being released when in the United States?
So it's being released this Thursday, so 2 days from now, October 5th, nationwide on 800 plus cinemas. By Fathom Release, that's their distributor, and if you want to, you're going to find a cinema near you very easily. You go on fathomevents.com, that's the website, Fathom Events. You're probably aware of them because they do a lot of faith-based movies.
We are. And they also do a lot of one-off video performances like operas and things like that on movie theaters.
They do a lot with the Metropolitan Opera. They do also revival of classic movie. They do Scarface, I believe, this month. So they have a very varied programming. And you'll immediately see, the upcoming programming. October 5th is like 2 days from now. So you click on Mother Teresa and Me, and then you can give in your town or your zip code, and it will give you the listing of the cinemas closest to you. And then you can click there. Either you just go to the cinema, or you can pre-buy tickets for you, your family, and friends. Fathom, Fathom, events.com.
So let's talk about, as your journey through the movie business, and you did these other movies that I mentioned earlier. So talk about, how did you get into the movie business in the first place? Walk us through kind of these three films that are mentioned, and then the road to doing a movie about Mother Teresa, who I feel is this universally known person with this amazing story that is probably one of the most undertold stories in probably cinema history.
So I'll try to make it a short answer. But
please.
I'm a Swiss lawyer by training and a film buff, and we've always been film, aficionado. And when I was a young lawyer, the only thing that interested me was watching movies. I kept binge watching movies, and I was thinking of movie all the time. And at some point, I said, if I continue to do that, it's not going to be good. I'm going to make a professional mistake because my head is not where it should be. And so I said, I want to discover if there's something I can do in the world of films, which I don't know of. And I decided to go to Los Angeles at the time for 2 weeks on a trip to try to bump into people who are in the movie business, when they do laundry or coffee for this, catering, or maybe they're actors. And that way I met a lot of
excuse me. That's a movie in itself, right? Lawyer from Switzerland goes on a blind trip to LA to hopefully bump into somebody in the movie theater, in the movie business. So that's your next movie.
I was very lucky because as I was there was just the AFM, that's the American Film Market, which is the biggest film fair in the US, which happens in Santa Monica. And I stopped by, what is that? And I instantly met a lot of people and hangers on, and everybody was telling me, oh, you should be a producer. And I'm like, why? I mean, isn't that the guy with a lot of money? He says, no, there's the guy who organizes the money, and he organizes everything. And if you're of a lawyer background, you can do it. And that's the positive American spirit, that you can do it, And so after 2 weeks of you can do it, I was so pumped up. I got back to Switzerland and said, okay, I'm going to do that. And I started preparing for that. Went 9 months later on the interviews, I organized a set of interviews in New York, in Los Angeles. I landed a job in New York in legal and business affairs. It was a small company headed by a producer, director, writer, an extremely talented guy named Hal Hartley. And he hired me to run basically all his legal work and get it organized, because he was churning so many movies. He didn't have the time and he didn't have the money really to do it. So, and
would I recognize any Hal Hartley movies?
Yeah, I mean, he was considered one of the major influences of independent cinema in the U.S. in the 80s and 90s. It's
Gotcha.
The Unbelievable Truth, Trust, Simple Mind, Amateur, then Henry Fool that I made with him,
Gotcha.
The Book of Life, and many others. And he said, well, the rest, everything you need to learn about movie making, you'll learn it working with me. And that's really how I learned making movies, working with him for 5 years. And then I decided to create my own little production company in New York, and did that for a while until like 2009, when we had the big financial crisis, and where all the infrastructure for independent filmmaking fell apart. It's not just the financing, but also the entire distribution network. The small distribution companies like the Miramaxes that you recall.
Sure.
They were all first bought up by the studios, and then when the financial crisis happened, they liquidated them because it was a cost-saving measures. And suddenly you had no distributors, or you had new distributors, but who had no money. So you had to give them your movie. They couldn't pay you anything. They couldn't invest in the marketing of the movie. So it ceased to be a business. And then, the DVD business also, which was a major cash cow, ran out at the same time. There was no, it's still, the independent world is still very much in flux, because you have the streamers, and then the rest you take a crapshoot, but you can no longer. Before, you could really have a budget. You could say, this is my plan. This is how much we can sell it to the US. We can sell it international to Japan, France, Germany, etc. And you could at least break even and forecast a profit. And that was enticing to producer. And at that time, in 2009, I met my wife, and I said, well, movie business is no longer the place to be, or not the place, to grow a family, to base a family.
Sure.
And that's why I decided.
What's your favorite part of making a movie? What's the best part of the process for you?
Best part of the process is screenwriting. I mean, working with the writers, and also in editing.
What's your least favorite part of the process?
Raising money.
Join the rest of us.
Yeah, but that's that's what you need to know. You don't have the one without the other. So
let's talk about Mother Teresa and Me. How did this film become part of your life and get on your radar?
Well, it's interesting you ask this, because just as I returned from the US and I settled down in Zurich and restarted my legal career, a friend of mine calls me, who's produces documentaries, and says, "Oh, there's these guys. They want to make a motion picture, feature film, and I thought you'd be a good person. They have no clue how to go about it. Why don't you talk to them?" I said, "Okay, yeah, sure." And this couple came to me, and they had been in Calcutta and in India, and they were, especially the wife has been deeply moved by the poverty she saw, and especially the children on the streets, and she felt moved to compelled to do something. She couldn't just walk away and say, "But what?" And then A day later or so, she's an actress, and she's in somebody's Hollywood producer's office in Bollywood, and there's a big painting of Mother Teresa there. And and this inspiration comes to her. You have to do a movie about Mother Teresa, and bring her spirit into the world. In this world of war, of strife, and make it in that sense, a better world. It sounds a bit corny, and then I told him, what it takes to make a movie, what are the different steps. That there was no story at the beginning, so we just the character of Mother Teresa. It was a very long story, and then we started working at first on a storyline, and then on the screenplay. Then we hired a screenwriter to help us with that. Kamal Musale, who also directed the movie and did a phenomenal job. And the interesting part is that this lady I'm talking to you about, Jacqueline Fritchie-Cornas, she's a Swiss actress, and she thought, oh, it'd be great if I could have a bit part. And that Indian producer who she had told, we should do a movie about Mother Teresa, he did some research, and he got back to her and said, you look like the young Mother Teresa. That's like 14 years ago. That's like 14 years ago. He said, really? And so this idea came that she could maybe play it, And she trained for 12 years. And while we were raising money, working on the screenplay, and she ended up playing Mother Teresa. And
did you just say 12 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's preparation.
Well, it's not just preparation, because between the finding the storyline, establishing what is the storyline, and we can discuss it later. It's a complex storyline because we created a fictional character, and we have two strings of stories. One is present day, and we do flashback into Mother Teresa's life. And then, writing the screenplay until, if you don't have a good screenplay, you're never going to have a good movie. If you have a bad recipe, you're not going to get a great dish. And so that's where you have to invest the money and the time, because it's cheap when you do a screenplay. When you're later in the process, it's become, if you're shooting, I remember a movie a few years ago, they shot it for 200 million, and then they had to scrap the third act and rewrite it and reshoot it. I mean, you can do it if you have the studios and you have 100 millions to blow away.
Right.
But so it takes a lot of time, and raising the money was not an easy task. And we had decided, I don't know if you know that, but to raise the money entirely from donations.
I saw that.
Thought, what do we do? If this movie becomes a success, everybody always hopes the film is going to be a success and makes a lot of money. We felt, it shouldn't go into our pockets. It would be improper for us to become rich on the back of Mother Teresa. So we thought, well, why don't we create a foundation? And we financed the movie through donations, 501c3 basically, and then when the revenue stream starts, there's no revenue, no production costs to recoup, and all the money can go directly to the poorest of the poor in the spirit of Mother Teresa.
How did you solicit How did you solicit donations? How did that process work?
Well,
was it a GoFundMe thing? How did that work?
No, it was really person to person.
Okay.
We did a lot of events. We shot a light little pilot with a few scenes of the movie, because we found that it's difficult to speak about a movie. People need to see images to understand what you want to do. So we did we shot a number of scenes of the movie. We hired actors, so we did a mini production. And we shot the behind the scene footage where we explained what we did. And we had events where we would screen these two little movies and try to raise money. it took us probably 4 years to raise the budget.
So was this a difficult production? Average in relation to difficulty? Did it seem to go easier than you thought?
Well, it just needed time. But at the same time, the movie script could mature, the actors could mature in the preparation of their part, and it shows on the screen. The quality that you see on the screen is like, if a studio would make that movie, it could cost them probably 40 million to do. They couldn't do it on that budget we did. But also, they wouldn't do 12 years of pre-production, or preparations.
So as you're getting closer, you have 4 years of fundraising leading into production. Was any of what else was going on in the sphere of movies and or television with faith-based kind of, that were starting to see more success and a little more of the idea of interest in them? And of course, TV streaming would be something like The Chosen, which is all donated, donations and blowing up doing that. And then there's been a couple of different movies in the last, especially Sound of Freedom in this last summer that went crazy, right? Was that ever in the thoughtscape of this as you're moving through here, going, maybe all this time to get here, it's hitting the market at the right time?
Well, I think is certainly the only country today that has a large enough audience that goes to see faith or spiritual movies.
Right.
Europe is post-Christian. There are some, but you don't have the numbers, to actually. Maybe in Spain you have that still, but otherwise sense. It's basically gone. So if you want a commercial success and get on the map, we always thought, that this movie, the USA would be the best market for this movie, to land on the map, because there's an appetite, there's an audience that's looking for those kinds of films, and that's why we wanted to have a theatrical release. Because if you have only a theatrical release will get you press attention, interviews, write-ups. If you go straight to streaming, you don't get noticed. And if you just go straight to streaming, if you decide tonight with your wife you want to watch a movie, you have a choice of 10,000 movies, and you already probably know 5 that you want to see that you missed in the cinemas or that you heard from friends. So if it's not in your mind, you're not going to look for it. So it's very good. You're going to be on the platform, but nobody's going to go look for your movie. So you have to create that awareness through the marketing that you do for a theatrical release. And it's a big release for a small film because, as we said earlier, we're on 800 screens nationwide. That means we're in every market, at least on one screen, if not more. So it's phenomenal.
So you mentioned it earlier. The plot has a back and forth through time between the current time, which is about this young lady named Kavita who is struggling with a pregnancy, and then flashing back to Mother Teresa. Was that an original idea when the script started getting written, or as time developed, you thought this was a better way of telling the story?
Well, we discovered that with Kamal Moussaleh, the screenwriter, very early on, that the drama of Mother Teresa is all internal. It's her. And that's what we address in this movie. I don't know if your audience knows about it, but Mother Teresa had what you call the dark night of the soul that mystics experience or have experienced, where they feel this sense of abandonment, by Jesus, and Mother Teresa called it this darkness. All I see is darkness. So she had no connection to God anymore. And she was really tapping in darkness for many, many, many years. And yet every day she got up on her mission. And internally she went through all kind of emotion, and her daily life was not very dramatic, in terms of if you look at as an arc for a character. It's episodically she does fantastic things, or there's this you can talk about this day or this event, but it doesn't really allow for for an arc in developing the character. And
so trust me, I'm a cradle Catholic, and I will tell you, as a guy with Mother Teresa, I only remember her from always she's working with poor people in Calcutta, right? I couldn't tell you about another incident in her life other than doing the small work every day as time went through. That's what I remember. So, St. Francis, Stigmata, Animals, Wolf of Gubbio. We could do a whole bunch of great stories. St. Francis, I need a good movie about him one day. But I can't think of a story of Teresa of Calcutta that stood out. So I understand I feel your pain,
and so we thought,
I feel your challenge.
If we have a character, this other story, and the idea is that through the young woman, contemporary, we discover Mother Teresa, and we see the effect that Mother Teresa has on this young girl today. That allows us to go in and out of Mother Teresa's life where we want to go, and to follow her inner struggle. And so it became more easier to fashion an interesting storyline for the Mother Teresa part of the story. And
what's
we wanted also,
what's the plot device that connects Kavita to Mother Teresa? How are they connected in the story?
Well, for that you'll have to watch the movie till the end, because that's not going to be revealed. But Kavita, she's this young Indian woman of Indian descent. She lives in London, and she is she finds herself pregnant. You mentioned that before. Her boyfriend abandons her, and then she flees to Calcutta, because there she meets her nanny. The nanny, she used to work for Mother Teresa. She had been adopted by Mother Teresa. So she kind of make the connection for her to learn about Mother Teresa. By going to Calcutta, she learns more of Teresa, and we go into that territory.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense. So let's get to the heart of the film. So after you went through this, producing this film, going through the film, watching the film, and finally it's edited, what did you feel as a member of the human race? What did you feel after watching Mother Teresa and Me?
Well, I'm very moved each time I see it, and it's one of these films that I can watch it again and again and again. I never get tired of it. It always feels fresh, and I'm moved each time because these are real emotions. It's not sentimental, It's not like the girl plays the violin, but it doesn't try to make you cry or try to push your buttons. It's very genuine, and I'm deeply impressed the most really by Mother Teresa each time, because it's a real mystery, this woman, because as I said earlier, she was a nun for many years. Maybe she was above 40. She was in India. She was a teacher, for young girls. And at the time, after the Second World War, you had the partition of India, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And then they started moving populations left and right, and enormous misery ensued. And the thriving city, Calcutta, became a cesspool. And with all these people on the streets. And at that moment in history, Mother Teresa hears Jesus talking to her and says, I want you to go in the streets to help the poorest of the poor. And from that day on, you have a very intimate relation that developed between Jesus and Mother Teresa for 2 years. 2 years in which she asks her bishop, to allow her to go work on the streets, to be exclostrated as a nun on the streets. And, it takes a lot of time. It has to go up to the Vatican, and the Vatican, then Pius XII was the Pope at the time, approved it. and she has this intimate relationship with Jesus. And the day she hits the streets, boom, he's gone. Ghosts her, doesn't respond, and she writes, my prayers goes up and come back as knives in my heart, and it's really brutal language, if you want, and vivid language. And she goes through all kind of state of emotion, and all her life she keeps struggling. But at no moment does she throw in the towel. Every day she gets up, she girds herself for battle, for work, to do the mission that she was entrusted with, and does it with joy. She puts a game face on, you could say, to be joyful for the people, so that they don't realize what she's suffering inside. And day after day, months after months, years after years, decade after decade, and and the fruits are showing up. She gets tons of, still today, you have a lot of vocation for her order. They're above more than 5,000 sisters of charity around the world. They're all over the world almost. And so you really can see that it's God's work. And she kept saying, "No, this is not my work. It's not my ego. I'm only doing God's work." But still, she didn't feel God anymore. But she kept longing and hoping he would. The thing that we can most learn from Mother Teresa, because we all have our crises or tough moments. It can be personal, it can be on the national stage. When you look, we talked earlier about the culture that's sliding and sliding. You say, well, when is it ever going to stop? And to believe, yes, we have to keep going at it, because if I abandon, it's over. We all have to do our job and work against it and keep faith. And that's what it is to have faith, I believe. It's even when in the deepest darkness, you keep going.
Well, I think we got to keep building up. Filmmakers have that ability to convey these big ideas, and I think holding up people like Mother Teresa in a movie like this is part of building up the culture again. I know I have to watch the movie on Thursday night, fathomevents.com, but is there a payoff for Mother Teresa in the end after all of her darkness?
I don't know if it's a pay. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure she's in heaven with Jesus. I mean, yep. That's what we all strive for. That's a payoff.
Being known by the fruits of your labor, right? And if there's someone who's being known for the fruits of her labor in the 20th century, it'd probably have to be Mother Teresa of Calcutta.
Yeah, absolutely, and she can emulate. We can. What we wanted to do with this movie is really to inspire people when they see this little lady, what she does, to say, hey, why don't I do something? She said, do little acts of kindness. You can help somebody cross the street, an elderly person. You can do their groceries. You can visit somebody who's alone or at the hospital. Do little things. Nobody says you have to create a big foundation, a big... Well, you need a lot of smiling to a person on the street, and recognizing his existence. You restore their human dignity by doing that, and that's what's important. That's what when we each pass each other by, and you look away. If you look at somebody, even if you can't help, but you acknowledge his existence, it's already a gift.
Hey, folks, we had a little bit of a technical issue with Thierry's Zoom. I mean, I thought we did pretty good from, Zoom from Switzerland. We're so fancy here at Faith, Family, and Schools. But check out Mother Teresa and Me. It's going to be on 800 screens in America starting this Thursday. And on October... Hold on. I want to get it right. October 5th. So... check out 800 screens. Go to fathomevents.com. And again, we talk about things that are flowing downstream from culture, like we talked with Thierry during the interview. Culture, film, and television is a huge part of culture. And if we can get more of these kind of productions out there. And again, The Chosen's blowing up. Started off as a crowdfunded that all of a sudden blew up on Angel Studios. Now it's on the CW every Sunday night. So I think there's hopefully a wave of people interested in these faith type movies and television series that'll just hopefully make society better as we move through life. So everyone, have an amazing day. Keep watching for new episodes of Faith, Family, and Schools. Go to faithfamilyschools.com. And of course, you can watch it at YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Everyone have a great day.